Ready, sir? Good evening. Would you stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance, please?
Let's pray. Father, we thank you. We thank you for life. We thank you for the relative peace that you've given us to our community. We ask you to help guide us to continue to make decisions that will help keep that peace. We ask you to bless each individual that's here, bless all the individuals of this city, the many that protect us, watch over us, make decisions for us. Lord, we pray that every decision that's made this evening would bring honor and glory to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Chief Pfeiffer, since you brought your friends this evening, would you lead us?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for July the 27th, 2023. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll that all members of council are present this evening. Having a quorum, we will proceed. First item on our agenda this evening is our public forum. With us this evening, we have Mr. Terry Velligan. He is with the Parkersburg Bridge Partners, and he's going to give us a little information this evening about the new bridge and the opening.
Thank you, distinguished mayor, distinguished council members. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As mayor said, my name is Terry Velligan. I'm the general manager of Memorial Bridge in Parkersburg, and we're going to give you a brief overview of what's happening with the bridge. I have a co-worker, John Wallace, who will introduce himself and go through a little bit of updates on the bridge construction and then creating accounts and things of that nature. So, John?
Like Terry mentioned, my name is John Wallace. I am the account manager for Parkersburg Bridge Partners. My primary role is to help businesses save time, mileage, and overall costs by determining the best route for them when they're driving. But right now, at this phase, we are kind of all hands on deck. So as far as the construction project, things are on pace for an early fall opening day. We did invest $50 million into this project, new cast-in-place concrete system, repaving both sides of the approaches, new paint and coating system on the bridge, the installation of new roadway lighting, as well as color-changing decorative lighting throughout the truss. So the thing's going to be a postcard. It's going to be gorgeous. But the biggest impact to the community is going to be the all-electronic open road tolling system. In order to get the best pricing for the toll system itself is through the use of a transponder. Now, we are part of the EasyPass network, so we will have the ability to read any type of EasyPass transponder, including what they use on the West Virginia Turnpike. But what we're going to use is something that's a little bit newer. It's going to be thicker technology, and the reason for that is because it's easier to get in bulk and cheaper to distribute. So we'll actually provide the transponders free of charge. So all people have to do is set up an account, put money into the prepaid portion of it, put the transponder on the windshield, and then every time they cross the bridge, the toll amount will be automatically deducted from that prepaid bank. Now, we are running into a few delays with the build-out of our permanent office space. So we are opening up a temporary office space. It's located on 2001 Garfield Avenue. And the hours of operation temporarily are going to be from 10 to 4. And we can start registering people as early as tomorrow. So anybody that would like to, come on in. We are encouraging people, anybody that has tickets that were unused on the bridge, we actually developed a ticket redemption program. So if you have any of these unused tickets, come into our office with the tickets, valid ID, registration for any vehicle you want to put on the account, and a form of payment. And we'll actually set up an account unless you walk out with the transponder and apply a promotional balance of basically $1 per trip per Class 1 tickets. So you'll get one trip across the bridge for each ticket that you bring in to us. Now, we are expecting a huge influx of people, especially the opening weeks. So we are encouraging anybody that doesn't have a ticket or doesn't want to participate in this redemption program to actually go online and register at mymovpass.com. And you'll basically do the same thing. You'll plug in vehicle information, credit card information, and we'll actually mail you the transponder. Does anybody have any questions about that process? I know I kind of ran through it pretty quick.
I just have one question.
Sure.
What's the minimum balance that you were required to start that up?
So the minimum balance is actually going to be $25. And that money is always the customer's until you actually use the bridge. So the money will stay in the account until it's used. There's no penalties, there's no fees, there's no reoccurring charges, unless you opt into our $30 monthly unlimited usage subscription. It should be noted that the only way that that can apply, as well as the ticket credit program, is through the use of the MOV Pass, our transponder. There's no way for us to apply that discount or that promotion to the Easy Pass. But when it comes to the $30 unlimited rate, it is an option. It is not forced on anybody. So like I said, there are no reoccurring fees. If you just want to pay per trip, it would be $1 per trip for a 2-axle commuter with the transponder. Now, unfortunately, without a transponder, it reverts to something that we refer to as a pay-by-plate. So equipment on a bridge will actually take a picture of the license plate, and then we'll have to actually pay the DMV for registration information and then print mail off an invoice. It is a very expensive process. So with administrative fees, it adds about $3.50 to the toll if we have to mail it out, which is another reason why we're actually, providing the transponders free of charge, is so that, people have the opportunity to pay the lowest rates. Even if the people don't plan on using the bridge, we do suggest everybody in the area to open up an account just to keep options open. God forbid there's an accident on a 5th Street Bridge or the bypass gets backed up. It leaves room, for a margin of error. You cross the bridge once a month, okay, your account will stay in good terms, stay active, and like I said, that money never expires.
Okay, so if you don't participate in the transponder and you go across the bridge, it will capture your license plate, send you a bill in the mail that's going to be...
So for a 2-axle commuter vehicle, it's all about classifications. So equipment on a bridge will actually measure the length, width, and height of the vehicle. So for a standard just commuter car, if we have to mail you an invoice, it'll be $4.50 per trip. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Mayor, Council, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. If you do have any questions, I think John put a flyer on in front of you. Please reach out to us. Any questions at all about the transponders, MovePass, or the construction? Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, fellows, for coming. And as we talked the other day, if you feel like there's a need for you all to come up, we'll make space available. We'll tell people to come in and you'll answer whatever questions they have and what have you. So anyway, thank you for the time, and we're looking forward to the bridge opening.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next is Henry Sasson.
Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenmount Hills Drive in Vienna. Going through 2 weeks ago, last meeting, I think it was the 13th, you guys were talking about position for economic development for the city. Before folks start looking at that type of stuff, I would hope that you can reach out to the different companies in the area, the DuPonts, the Chemours, the Creightons, Kraton Polymers, Solvay, and Momentive up in Sistersville. Reason why I say that is we find it hard to get people to want to relocate from other world areas, as well as new hires to come into the area. And instead of putting the cart in front of the horse of doing stuff like that, reach out and try to understand, or if it's Lindsley or whoever it's, if from the Wood County Economic Development Board, to do that type of stuff. Because it's hard to attract qualified individuals to want to live here. And it goes back to what's our vision for the future. Chris brought that up, that there was, what's the future for Wood County and stuff going to look like? Going through, bringing in businesses that are, restaurants and stuff like that. That is a small piece of the whole puzzle. You got to look at stuff, what can you do from a manufacturing standpoint, where you're going to draw a family, grow the family, and future families into the area. And I'll leave you with the computer chip facility that's going in Ohio. That one thing was like $2.1 billion or whatever. The county that was going into was about 20,000 people more than Wood County back years ago. Since that time, that county's exploded. Wood County's dropped in total population. So something to consider before we go through and put a lot of effort into the stuff is reach out to the big companies and understand what's going on and what are some of the moving parts that they're having problems with. Thanks.
The minutes from the regular council meeting on July the 13th, 2023 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? No objections, and the minutes will stand approved as posted. The report of the treasurer will be given at the first meeting in August, and so we move right into our agenda this evening. We have no unfinished business, and so we go to new business. The first item on our agenda this evening is an internal budget revision number 1. Councilman Leach.
Internal budget revision number 1 is for the senior center, transferring from 90516 maintenance and repair of equipment, moving money for the maintenance to cover the cost of a new ice machine. Budget before the change, $7,000, deduction $2,725. Budget after, $4,275, transferring to 90559, capital outlay equipment. And again, increased by $2,725 to bring the budget after change to $5,225.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of internal budget revision number 1.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve internal budget revision number 1. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of internal budget revision number 1, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Item number 2 this evening is an ordinance on first reading, adopting and enacting the updated City of Vienna Employee Handbook. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby adopts and enacts the attached City of Vienna Employee Handbook. As it is written, the Employee Handbook is effective upon adoption of this ordinance. All of you should have a copy of the new version in the Dropbox. So I'll entertain a motion for the approval and first reading of the ordinance adopting and enacting the updated City of Vienna Employee Handbook, commonly known as the Personnel Manual.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the ordinance on first reading. Is there any further discussion?
I had a question about it. I did read through it all. I didn't see anything in it that was concerning other than employee and elected official social media policy. So I have a question about elected officials because, of course, we are not employees of the city. And so I don't understand why there is a policy in here regarding our personal social media pages. I don't think that it's really, I don't think that it needs to be in here, and I have concerns as why it is in here. I reached out to the city attorney this afternoon, and we were kind of late getting our messages back and forth. But the way I understand it, if as an elected official, there are certain things obviously I can't do on social media. If I do those things, then I can be subject to a criminal charge or an ethics violation. Those are, for example, representing myself as, representing the city, any policy the city has, representing it as myself, that would be a violation. I don't think we'd really do that, but and some other things that Mr. Skogstad and I discussed. So I don't understand why this is in here, because as elected officials, of course, we have protected First Amendment rights.
Mr. Skogstad, would you please respond?
Well, we have a social media policy that covers both employees and elected officials. I think that honestly, I think the biggest thing that addresses the issue is there's in paragraph C, which is the paragraph that you sent down, there is a semicolon where there should be a comma. And I think if you replace the semicolon with a comma, I think it addresses your issue. there's no West Virginia statute that specifically governs the social media. There is, with respect to public employees and public officials, the predominant statute that deals with content that would be placed on social media is under the Ethics Act. And so there's a series, well, there's only a couple of opinions. There's only one opinion that specifically addresses social media, but the rest of the opinions address issues that have traditionally arisen over, the 30, 40 years of the Ethics Act. So I don't think it affects the issue in the way that I think you addressed your concern. It doesn't prohibit you from posting on social media. It just asks that if an employee or an elected official posts on social media, their personal social media, that it's very clear that they're not posting as a representative of the city and they're not taking a city position or city policy. I don't think it prohibits the discussion of items that are on the agenda. It prohibits or prevents the discussion between the public and any individual council member. I think so long as it is clear that the council member is acting in their capacity and when it comes to any city business, that they're acting, it's their own opinion as opposed to the entire governing body's opinion or issue or what have you, then I don't think that's an issue at all. But I hopefully I've addressed your concern.
Well, you did on that Part C, as we talked about earlier, but as I read it more closely this afternoon, page 42G, posting photographs or statements in which would jeopardize police or fire investigations or be viewed as negative against the city or its administration. So hypothetically, if a member of council just said, this is hypothetical.
So the mayor stinks.
Okay, the mayor stinks.
Okay.
So would we be in violation of this employee policy?
I don't think so. I think you have I think that you have to take all there is no way that I can draft a policy that accurately encompasses every scenario. I mean, there's just no way. You can't. The First Amendment is too complex. You have to read the First Amendment along with the ethics statutes. You have to read it along with the election laws. And you have to take all those into consideration while you're dealing with a person who's elected, whether a person is an employee, whether a person is a private citizen. So what I'm trying to do is craft a social media policy that is a framework within which one can work. If you're not satisfied with the language in that, I think it's, paragraph G? I don't have it in front of me. I can't get into the Dropbox. So, I believe that's paragraph G on it. I think it's on page 42.
Correct.
And if you look at that, I mean, you can always amend it and just eliminate the negative against the city or its administration.
Well, my question is this. Once again, this is an employee policy, and we're not employees of the city. If you want a policy that kind of frames up what the parameters are for elected officials, I think that's fine. But that should be a different policy, not included in the employee manual.
Well, we dealt with that the last time we had a social media policy. It was brought before council, I think, in 2020, and I have a vague recollection that it was revisited at some time in the interim, or maybe it was a time period before. And what the intent is to try to have city employees, public officials, elected, and the elected officials all adhere to the same policy so that there's some uniformity there. I understand that elected officials have a different, I don't want to say status, but have a different way of gaining employment with the city than most regular employees. But the idea is to have something that applies to everyone in as close to the same way as reasonably can. I could certainly draft a policy for elected officials that is separate and apart from the social media policy for public employees, and if I'm directed to do that, I would. But I think that the idea was to have a uniform policy, try to recognize that elected officials already have different remedies for violation of policies than the employees do. I point out that employees in the city of Vienna are at-will employees and don't have the same employment protection that a elected official has. It's very difficult to remove elected officials from office for violations of policy. You actually have to go through a whole circuit court process, but I'm not here to go into that. City employees already do not have the same statutory protections that elected officials do as far as their employment. But the intent was still that we all work here, we all work for the city, and we're all trying to work under the same policies and have the same set of rules. I understand that that's the intent of it. And certainly if I'm directed to write something different, I'd be more than happy to do that. I just try to write what is asked of me and try to do it in as reasonable way as I can, but I'm not infallible.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I mean, for me, I think it would be cleaner that our policy is not in the employee manual and that it's, written for us, and then for council to consider for approval. So at this point, I would like to make an amendment to strike elected official or elected officials from the social media policy.
We have an amendment on the floor to remove the language on section G. And how much of that would you like to remove, Kim?
The whole, on page 41, it begins with employee and elected official social media policy. And so when you read down through the entire policy, which encompasses page 41 and 42, I would like to strike out all elected officials.
On 41 and 42?
Yeah. There may not really be very much on 42 as far as the language of elected official, but it's on 41, it applies to that. So on page 41, the heading city personnel and elected officials are prohibited from the following on city or personnel or personal social media sites. If you strike out elected officials, I think that would take care of everything. And then we can address later, if we choose to, a policy for elected officials.
Okay, so if your amendment passes, then we'll have Mr. Skogstad rewrite that for second reading, and we'll clear it up then. All right? Okay, so we have an amendment. We have a motion to amend the city, the personnel manual section that says city personnel and elected officials are prohibited, which begins on page 41 and ends on 42. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the personnel manual. Is there any further comments?
Just briefly, I think, as Russ already said, as elected officials, we're already governed by a set of rules, our ethics rules, and we are not employees of the city in the sense of the employee policy manual. So I agree with their logic. I think it doesn't add anything, and it could be more or less confusing.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the amendment as presented, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Kim, Russ will rewrite that. We'll present it on second reading with that language removed.
And I'm going to take the comment out paragraphs, the semicolon. It should be a comment.
Second.
Thank you, Russ.
All right, so now we go back to the ordinance on first reading as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then. This is an ordinance adopting and enacting the updated City of Vienna Employee Handbook. Be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it hereby adopts and enacts the attached City of Vienna Employee Handbook as it is written, and it will be presented in a rewritten format on second reading. The employee handbook is effective upon adoption of this ordinance on second reading. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, motion carries unanimously on first reading. It will be back on the agenda on the 10th of August. Okay. The third item on our agenda this evening is a resolution to increase the annual salary of all Vienna certified law enforcement officer salaries by $12,000 per year. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that all certified law enforcement officers' salaries shall be increased by $12,000 annually, beginning September the 1st, 2023. This pay increase is $5.77 per hour. The intent of this pay increase is to increase the base hourly wage rate by $5.77. We typically go for a motion to approve this. But before we do that this evening, I think there's going to be some discussion held on this. And so, Mr. Azinger, this is yours. If you would like to do your opening remarks.
Thank you. We have a real problem attracting police officers in Vienna as well as other places. We've been down 2 officers for 2 years, and everybody on the council here has been in office 2.5 years. And this means that the police department is only 90% as effective as it could be. In 18 months, approximately 18 months, we could lose up to 6 police officers. That means we have about 6 months to hire 8 police officers to bring us up to complement. The reason we only have 6 months is because when you hire a police officer, he has to take the written exam, he has to take the agility test, he has to the polygraph test, he has to go to the academy, he has to come back and do the routine training that police officers go through before they're on the street. So time, obviously, is of the essence. I have talked with current policemen, former policemen, young men, and come to the conclusion we need to pay them more, a lot more. Everyone I talked with, to the person, compensation was the #1 problem. I spent an hour and a half this afternoon talking with a consultant in this area, and he has the same feeling. For instance, there's a Vienna retailer where you can go and make almost as much as you can as a starting police officer and not have to worry about wrestling 18-year-old druggies and drunks or getting shot or wearing a bulletproof vest. I have one on. It's terrible. But anyway, maybe I get used to it. Our #1 responsibility is to keep our citizens safe. If we don't take action now, we may have a far less safe city in the very near future. You know, if we don't hire more police officers, we could be down to 12. That wouldn't be enough to cover 3 shifts, much less have community resource officers. We don't have community resource officers at our grade schools. We do at Jackson. You know, I don't think we fully appreciate the difficulty of police work. I'm sure I don't, because I've never been a policeman. Or do we appreciate the great culture that we enjoy in Vienna? As I mentioned before, they have to take all these tests before they even get hired. And like the next civil service test is in September, I believe. You know, I don't think anybody sitting up here has ever taken a polygraph test or any other test. Certainly, maybe not an intelligence test. There are 3 areas that make their life different. There's the physical part. One of them's wearing these vests. I have one on. It's worse than the one I wore for back surgery. It's up in my Adam's apple. I guess the women wouldn't have to worry about that, but I do. They have to wear 23 pounds of gear. That means for every 8 hours that they're awake for 20 years or however long they serve, 3 out of the 8 hours they have this vest on, plus all the other paraphernalia. And most of them end up with back problems and feet problems. They suffer from overtime fatigue, and when they go out the door in the morning, unlike any other department in the city or where I worked, you don't know whether they get into an altercation. They don't know whether they're going to face a needle, exposed to fentanyl, a knife, a gun, or whatever. It's just different. And there's a lot of stress involved in the job. There's also the mental part. You know, you go out to a bad wreck and pull somebody out from underneath the wheel. It's pretty hard not to take that home at night. They're on call 24 hours a day. They don't have the family time that most of us do. You know, some of these bad situations are hard not to take home with you. You know, their kids don't understand why daddy ain't home. As I said, these are characteristics that are uncommon to the average job, to most jobs, probably 99+% of the other jobs. Find people this day and age is extremely difficult. Compensation is critical. There are 10 million jobs available in the United States. There's only 5 million looking for jobs. So people have a choice. Also, inflation has brought compensation to the forefront. You know, the last loaf of bread I bought cost $4. A year from now, it's going to cost me $4.20 because inflation is predicted to persist. If we want policemen, we have to pay them. We've underpaid them for 88 years. The city of Vienna and I were born in 1935. It's 88 years ago. And I don't think we've ever paid them an adequate salary. A lot of other departments are raising their wages. Ravenswood, a town of less than 4,500 people, just raised theirs $10,400 a year. 2 hours from here in Westerville or Dublin, you can start in the neighborhood of $80,000 a year. Ohio County just raised theirs 20%. So we come down to the basic question, and that is, do we want enough police officers to have a safe city? We've been down 2 officers for 2 years, and we need to do something to get on our horse and hire more police officers. The time to act is now. We only have 6 months. I say pay them what they're worth. Thank you.
Further discussion? We will as soon as we get done. Further discussion?
Well, I guess I'm a little confused on the procedure if we're going to discuss before we move and second it, but
Are we discussing after we move it and second it also?
We will.
Okay.
If This is, we can do it. I mean, I have no problem with it. I just knew that Mr. Azinger had a statement he wanted to read, so
Absolutely.
this is his resolution.
I appreciate his leadership. I was just trying to understand the process, because I do have something to say, but I don't want to go out of turn.
Not a problem, Kim. Let me start, okay?
Sure.
So we have a resolution to increase the annual salary of all Vienna certified law enforcement officer salaries by $12,000 per year. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that all certified law enforcement officers' salary shall be increased by $12,000 annually, beginning September the 1st, 2023. This pay increase is $5.77 per hour. The intent of this pay increase is to increase the base hourly wage rate by $5.77. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Is there any further discussion?
Okay. I agree with Mr. Azinger. Compensation is critical. I don't think compensation is the complete answer to this problem. We have, we know we're facing a crisis, and it's a crisis nationwide. It's not just to Vienna, obviously, as he talked about. But, we're going to have, approximately 5 officers, retire in the next couple years. So where I think compensation needs to be increased, because I agree, officers are not paid enough. That dollar amount's really what we need to consider. But I also believe one of the things that may help us attract officers in to come to Vienna is to look at the current pension plan that we have now, and to close that to new hires, and consider enrolling new hires in the pension plan I think it's called the State Municipal Police and Fire Retirement System. It's what Parkersburg did several years ago. Another thing, in my opinion, would be to be able to develop and fund a marketing program to attract officers here. We can target through marketing people that might be interested in becoming officers or want to come to Vienna who are already a certified officer. Vienna's a wonderful place, as we know, and the quality of life is really good here. Our community really supports our police officers. And I know this council and this mayor support our police officers. So I had an opportunity to meet with the finance director last week, and we were able to go over some stuff. And, my concerns were, if you give a $12,000 annual raise, that's not where it ends, right? Because you have payroll taxes and the impact of the pension and so on and so forth. And what does that look like on the whole overall budget? And we discussed a number that was really, the impact is large. And yes, we have a carryover every year, but I think that we need to scale back the compensation portion so that we don't overextend ourselves, because what I don't want to see us getting into is a situation where we have to raise the police fee or add additional fees onto the residents of Vienna. I think that we need to be competitive, and I feel that we're not competitive in our area. Police Chief Pfeiffer provided a pay study which just kind of compared other law enforcement agencies here in the Middle Ohio Valley. And right now, the starting pay for a Vienna police officer is $23 an hour. Well, 2.5 years ago, it was $17.65 an hour. So in 2.5 years, we've raised the compensation by $5.35. And I'm happy that we did that, because $17.65 an hour is extremely low wage for the type of work that's being asked. The city of Parkersburg had their officers start out at $23.47. The Washington County Sheriff's Department, I guess, is $25.25. So for me, my comfortable number would be to raise the compensation to $25 an hour, which is going to be more. It's going to be more than Parkersburg, more than Williamstown, which is 2205. If you raise that compensation so that we become the highest paid force, in West Virginia here in the Middle Ohio Valley, and then at a later date, if we can consider trying to look at the retirement to make retirement more portable. If an officer wants to come, let's say you have an officer in Beckley, maybe their spouse got a job at the Bureau of Physical Services and they want to move to this area, then if they were able to take their pension with them and make that more portable, then that alleviates a barrier that may be there for somebody. So I think that should be considered. And at a later date to consider, some type of I'm sorry, I can't speak today. I think you know what I'm saying. To develop and to fund a marketing plan so that we're able to attract officers. So, I want to amend this. I don't want to amend it just right now because I'm sure everybody has something they want to say, and so maybe I can come back to that later, but I don't want to stomp on the discussion at this point, but that's where I'm leaning.
I am like-minded with you in a lot of ways on this. I think a $2 or $3 an hour raise to become competitive with the other agencies directly in our area is a good idea. I do also agree that we need to take a look at the pension plan, close the current one, open the other one for all new hires, and the current one would still be good for everybody that's already with us, so that wouldn't change. Something that I had brainstormed a little bit and had actually talked to Chief Pfeiffer about was kind of an incentive program specifically for the police officers. So they kind of talk to their buddies in other agencies anyway, I think. And there's talk about, who's doing what and that kind of stuff. So that already kind of happens. They're maybe not specifically recruiting or trying to intentionally recruit somebody here. But I would not want to necessarily compensate them for bringing somebody from a competing agency. But maybe there is somebody, we'll use Beckley for example, if they've got a buddy who's in Beckley and he's like, you ought to come up here. And if that person comes up, if they're already certified and they're just able to transfer in and we hire them, then there would be, an incentive for that. If they're, maybe they're not even in law enforcement yet and they take the test, they go through every, every box that needs to be checked before they're hired, and then we hire them, then I think they get compensation for that. I think because, and Mr. Azinger made a good point about how we can't fully appreciate what you guys go through on a daily basis, whether it's the joys of the job, the sacrifice of the job, the trauma of the job, the physical wear and tear of the job, those kinds of things. And so I feel like we talk about like wanting to recruit more people, but I could tell people they should be a policeman, but I don't have that thing in me that makes me that person that I can't directly identify with what you guys have gone through. But if you had somebody that you knew and you were able to say, you know what, this is worth my time, and I don't know what dollar amount we'd be talking about, I'd want it to be a motivating dollar amount, 1,000 or more, and say, for each person that you bring in and we hire, you get that immediately right then. And I think that I would like to maybe kind of formally mobilize our police officers now to recruit and be compensated for that, because they know firsthand what it's like. I think, as I can see, and as the feedback that I've gotten back, I think the city of Vienna is a pretty good employer. I think we take care of our guys, we equip them well, we treat them well. The community, loves them, and so this is a good place to work and a good place to serve. And I would want you to recruit people that you would have their back and they've got your back, like, to continue with that culture of the force. Like you don't want somebody coming in that's a bad apple or somebody that's, like it changes the culture. And so if you guys already know people who could come this way, then I think that I would love to give you the money for the recruitment as opposed to, somebody that we hire to recruit people. So, and I could be persuaded to change this in different ways, but I would love to see some sort of an actual police officer incentive program for recruiting?
So, a couple of things. First of all, we have to be thankful to Tom for the forward thinking he's doing right now to see what's on the horizon for the police department. Two objectives. One, we want to fairly compensate our existing officers. And this is not just your hourly rate, of course, it's your total compensation plan. Everything that goes into that, your benefits, et cetera. So one purpose is to make sure our officers are fairly competitively paid. As Kim mentioned, and you all know, in the last few years, there have been a lot of movement in that direction to get a lot more competitive, okay? The second purpose is to create an attractive opportunity for either people who want to become police officers or, even better, those that are already certified officers. I talked to the chief today too, and one of the things we want to do is be good neighbors with our surrounding police forces. We work together, and as Melissa mentioned, not looking to to poach or cherry pick, just like we don't want them to do that to us. Okay. Another part of this discussion is the pension plan, and how do we balance this total compensation plan with respect to the upfront money of your hourly wage by starting, and also as you progress in the ranks. And then how do we balance that with the rest of the interest of the city? Because dollars that we put into the police department necessarily have to come from somewhere else. And we have other city employees who put forth their best effort, not in the same way that you do, but of course, probably the most analogous with Public Works and the fire department. Different, but yet similar things that, they're in situations. So I talked with Tom also, and I'm certainly not opposed at all to looking at a way to improve our competitiveness, to reward our existing officers, and to look to the future. But I told Tom, and I told everybody that I talked to, this came up pretty quickly. And with respect to the recruitment, I think there's an opportunity. I agree, and I've said before with what Kim says. I think we could do a much better job seeking out qualified officers that doesn't compromise our surrounding communities. And so, I don't know. I'm not ready to act on this tonight. And I told Tom I would immediately become involved in any way that I could help to look at these things. And so, absent something I haven't heard, it's going to be my position that we need to take a minute, think about this, table it, keep it in the forefront, and see everything that needs to be involved in this discussion.
So are you making a motion to table it?
I'll go with what Kim said. Let's get everybody's comments on the table, and then
Okay, thank you for that. All right, Chris?
Yeah. Again,
Go ahead.
thank you all for your service and for even being here this evening. It shows that you really care about the city of Vienna. I think a lot of the discussion tonight shows that we do really truly care about our police officers in this city, and we want to support you in the best way that we can. It sounds like from everyone tonight that we want to take a fully comprehensive approach to this. If I'm not speaking out of turn, I think that we want to make sure that we provide incentives for you guys to stick around. And we do need new police officers, and that's been kind of apparent over the last few years even. I've talked with Chief Pfeiffer about that, and knowing that folks are about to retire and age out, and needing new folks is a big deal. And having a strong enough force to keep this community safe is really important to make it as wonderful as it is currently. So I think I agree with a lot of the comments that were made up here. I think we should kind of take a step back and really look at, what all can we do besides just a pay raise? Not that doesn't help for sure, but I've, been fortunate to have Amy even sit down with me this week and kind of walk through those numbers and kind of some of the other financial options that we might look at to help with that. So I think Councilman Azinger has done a really wonderful job in bringing this to our attention and helping us kind of start this discussion. But I do agree. I think we need to really come up with a fully thought out and comprehensive plan that will make sure that we get the most recruitment capabilities that we have.
Tom, did you have something you would add? In your microphone, sir.
Well, if you were going to only have one department in Vienna, I think it would be the police department. Now, I understand that it would cost some money, but what's public safety worth? You know, if we had this carryover of almost $2 million, it's hard for me to believe that we don't have $500,000 to put this in. If you want to cut it back to 10,000 and phase it in, it would only cost, it'd be the same as giving them a $6,000 a year raise. This budget year. When we do the new budget, whatever it costs to have a viable police department, it costs. And we had to pay for it. $4,000, $2 an hour is about $4,000 a year. And numbers have a ring to them. You know, if you go to the doctor and your blood pressure is 210 over 100, that has a negative ring. But if you're going to raise salaries $12,000 or $10,000, that has a positive ring. It's not that these guys don't deserve it. I mean, it's a tough job. As I said, I spent an hour and a half with a consultant this afternoon who's a former policeman. The incentive program, half the officers are recruiting now. They try to find combatives to be on the department with them. And I'll get down to the time. I'll remind you the time. We have 6 months to hire a bunch of new officers. We haven't been successful in the last 2.5 years of increasing our numbers even by one. So if you want to have a viable police department, this day and age, you're going to have to pay for it. And these marketing programs and all this stuff is fine. But I didn't hear about any of them until about a week ago, and 50 days ago tonight, I brought the subject up. So again, time is of the essence. The next civil service exam is not just 2 months away. That takes up 2 of the 6 months we have. So kicking the can down the road, in my opinion, ain't going to get it.
Roger?
You know, I've been on council 24 years, and most of you know that my priority as far as council is public safety. And, you know, we've heard a lot of comments tonight about recruitment. Recruitment is very difficult. And Chris hit on it a little bit. I think one thing that's just as important as recruitment is retention. And I think the retention of the officers that we have are just as important as recruitment of new officers, although we do need to do that. But if we have good certified police officers and we can retain them longer, it sure would benefit the city. I agree with Mr. Azinger, and he and I have discussed this. You're looking at a complete comprehensive plan or a comprehensive idea of what to do with the police department. I mean, that's fine. But as he quoted earlier, the compensation is an issue. And I think we all know that. And, it's just, to me, I'm more concerned about retention than I am recruitment, although I don't get me wrong. I believe that's very important. We're faced with the same thing right now in the fire department. And we're working through some possible scenarios to try to retain what we've got over there. So there is a lot of work to do, but I want to retain what we've got while we work on recruiting the new officers.
Okay. So I guess what I would like to do is I would like to first off start by saying thank you to Amy Roberts, our finance director. She has spent an incredible amount of time researching various scenarios, both past and present, for us to consider. It's not her job to make the decisions, that's ours. And so we have to take the numbers that we're given and see what fits for Vienna. I would also like to thank the pension board. We had a special meeting and the pension board authorized having our actuary run the numbers to find out what the effect of this pay raise would do on our pension fund. And I do believe that long-term, the best advantage for the city of Vienna is to end the pension plan that we have now and convert over to the state of West Virginia's pension fund. It will not affect any of the officers that are currently on our force. It would simply go in for the new officers that come. And I do believe that right there is a move that, whether the pay raise passes or not, is something that we probably will have to do. Long term, it is a good solution for our pension fund. And I have to say that the pension fund that we have now, we are currently ranked as the #1 pension fund in the state of West Virginia. And so Amy and the pension board have done an outstanding job in conjunction with United Bank of managing the money that we have in our pension fund. I know when I came on, we started out with the pension fund was $5 million. It's now 13. And through the turbulent times that we went through, and to be able to maintain that amount of growth is phenomenal. And so I think that part of it is being managed very well. The other day I had an opportunity to sit with Mr. Leach, and Mr. Leach showed me a video that they had done for the YMCA. And I think that Mr. Leach is on to something very important for us. The city of Vienna does not do a very good job of selling itself. And so I believe that in today's times that people are looking for a great place to live, great schools, a great place to raise your family. And I believe that we offer every bit of that. And I don't think there's people outside of our area that are aware of that. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to do for the overall health of the city, is to let people know what we do have to offer. I thank Chief Pfeiffer for his work in doing the salary survey. He waited till the last minute to get absolutely the best numbers that he could get. And I have to admit that I thought that we were the second highest pay scale in our general area, and we're not. So that was kind of an eye-opener for me. So the other thing that I would like to bring to everyone's attention, not only on council, but for the people in the audience this evening, is the actual numbers. And so when you look at the numbers that were given in the last 30 months, 36 months, we have increased the salary of the officers on the police department by $11,138. And when you look at the various pay rate brackets, if we would go with a $1 an hour pay raise, it would impact our budget by $74,262.89. If you go to $2 an hour, it goes to $148,525.78. A $6,000 pay raise would be $2.88 an hour, and that would increase it by $213,979.01. An $8,000 per year pay raise would be $3.84 an hour, and that would be $285,305.35. And if we went to a $10,000 per year pay increase, that would be a $4.80 per hour increase, which would increase the budget by $356,631.59. And if we go with the $12,000 per year increase, which is the $5.77 that's in the resolution this evening, it would increase the amount to our budget in the amount of $428,479.89. I do believe, based on the opinions that I've heard this evening, that every person on council supports some sort of a increase. But I have to agree with Mr. Leach. I think that we should table this evening, and I can tell Mr. Azinger that we have our next council meeting on August the 10th. We'll bring this back. We can have the numbers. We can have further discussion. We can find out any answers that our police officers may have. Anything that comes to your mind, we can certainly gather that information. And so I would be supportive of tabling this to figure out what direction we want to go and if there's any other answers that need to be made. But I wanted you all to be aware of the numbers, of what the actual impact would be to the budget, and thank the people that have spent a lot of time doing this. I know that Kathy Stoltz is here with us this evening. She's the president of the Civil Service Board, and I know that finding new officers for her has been a very tedious job. Just getting applicants in here is very difficult. And, you know, the problem is when you start getting low numbers of applicants, you start looking at lowering your standards. And, you know, that is something that I don't believe the city of Vienna wants. I know we've made some concessions over the last couple of years, but I do believe that we still want the best that we can get, because I believe we have the best to give. And so, you know, that's my comments this evening. And unless someone has anything else, then we'll open it. Yes, sir, Tom?
If we gave him a $10,000 raise and it was effective September 1st, it would be an equivalent of giving him a $6,000 raise effective July 1st. Yeah, and unless we make this raise substantial, it ain't gonna do no good on retention. And I appreciate Kim at least made a suggestion, but I'm just telling you, it ain't gonna get it. And if we raise $10,000, and I guess then we'd have to make it effective October 1st, and gave, say we gave him a third of it October the 1st, a third of it January 1st, a third of it April 1st, it would cost somewhere around $5,500, the same as giving them a $5,500 raise. Now, I probably talking too much, but you know, it ain't an easy job. It's a tough job. As I said, 3 out of every 8 hours a guy's awake for 20 years, he has to wear this bulletproof vest. Plus all that other stuff is around his waist. We got to wake up. We don't have time either. Time is of the essence. Thank you.
Mr. Leach?
Yeah, I would go ahead and move to table this to our next council session, first session in August. And also think that just throw this out there for ideas about this, like Roger, Mr. Bibby, public safety, 27 years, certainly has a lot of experience in these areas. Try to do the same thing. We had a good meeting talking about this economic position, and Henry, I appreciate what you're coming in and saying. It's kind of the same thing what Henry said about talking to these big companies when we're talking about how we impact the other areas of our community, is to talk to some folks about, and I think that you put it the perfect way, retention and recruitment, right? Similar goals, but different. And so, yeah, I think taking a little bit of time, like the discussion about the pension plan, trying to put this all together so that our police department does understand also what all is involved. That Amy's put all the numbers together. We have an opportunity to digest those, bring in any other factors, and I think of putting a couple folks together to work on this very specifically. That was a promise I made to Tom when I talked to him. And it was like, time is of the essence. I get it. I said, we'll work on it and get something together. But I think tabling this, I would move to table it until the first meeting in August so we can consider it a little bit further in everybody's best interest.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we table this resolution until the next meeting of council. All those in favor of the motion to table it, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Okay, so we'll table this till the first meeting in August. Chief, I know that you're in constant contact with your officers. If there's anything else, you and I and certainly Tom, I believe Tom represents your police force as well as any liaison we've ever had. Okay, and so
Not very effective.
maybe your vest's too tight, Tom. But anyway, we'll make sure that we get this back, and we'll deal with it then. All right. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments?
I have one. This comes out of conversations that I've had a few times this week with a variety of the officers on the department. Is just a general note to our community, to those that are here, is to check on your neighbors. It's really hot outside. We should know what the routine of our neighbors are. Just check on them, make sure they're okay, see if they need anything. If you don't know your neighbors, at least know their routine, and if something's out of the ordinary, and go check on them, and make sure everything's okay.
All right. Terry, John, thank you for coming tonight. I think that once the bridge is up and running, I think it's going to be a huge relief to everyone. And I'm looking forward to see what the lights look like. I think it's going to be great.
Thank you very much.
So I appreciate y'all's involvement, and whatever the city of Vienna can do. If you need space for meetings or whatever, please let us know. We'll certainly accommodate that. So anyway, thank you for that. Nothing else this evening?